Hello. It is time for a movie that I've been waiting for a long time, ever since I saw the trailer. The Banshees of Inisherin. Um, this was a film that I really didn't know what to expect. The trailer didn't give you very much to go on, but it definitely delivered in every regard to
Other than that, it took place in Bulgaria, right?
yeah, Bulgaria, right across the water from Ireland.
That will be the one geography joke I make, given how Irish this film is.
Bulgaria and Ireland. Are we talking about the fourth Harry Potter book or movie? Quidditch World Cup, anyone?
Oh my gosh. Wait,
Oh,
that's true. Oh, I didn't even intend that. Oh my gosh.
of
I
course.
know you didn't. Um, Ben, I'm gonna pick right up on where you left off because I didn't watch a trailer for this movie.
Hmm.
You suggested it. I had heard about it. I knew what it was about. I watched interviews with members of the cast and creative team for work. Um, I I had a rare opportunity to go into a movie completely or almost completely blind, and so I was going to take advantage. This wasn't something like The Northman where the trailer played before every movie I went to. Bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Every single movie, that we were talking about from
Mm.
January until April. Um, yeah, I went in as close to with a clean slate as possible, and I think that really made my viewing experience better.
Mm.
One, because I expected it to be flipped. I expected Brendan Gleeson to be the one trying to get the friendship back and Colin Farrell to have been the one to end it. I expect just based on what I knew about them as actors, which isn't much, admittedly, or
Mm.
as much as I would like, but I expected it to be reversed. So that was you know that was nice for me in the theater to have that expectation subverted. And then just the way that it's sort of I knew it was going to be like a comedy drama, but the way it sort of melded black comedy with sort of a melancholy drama and then really intense drama.
Yeah, it's
I think,
very Martin McDonagh. It's
yeah,
got a almost identical feel to In Bruges, if any of you have seen that.
I've
Mm.
not seen. I've seen the
You
first.
guys should watch that. There's a great scene. I'll show it to you later, but Ray Fiennes he's talking on the phone and then he hangs up and he starts beating it up and his wife comes in and he's like, "It's an inanimate fucking object." And he yells at her, "You're an inanimate fucking object." But it's got the a very similar, like very depressing, but also very humorous, a very dark comedy. But it's definitely Martin McDonagh's style,
Mm.
what he's known for. But just picking up on that, like even if like I saw the trailer, I think I saw the trailer twice or three times, but none of the trailers actually give you very much,
Mm.
which is good. I mean, I think tons of movies these days do a bad job of just putting way too much in the trailer to the point that part of the film is already ruined and you just sort of see what else happens. But this one sort of just tells you bare bones. Like you have the one scene where he tells them like I'm gonna chop off one of my fingers if you keep bothering me. But that's it. You know, you don't really get
Mm.
any of it. And you don't get I mean the core of this film is kind of the backdrop. It's a very brilliant way to tell a story. Um, in that you have this, like obviously we're focusing on Colum and Podrick, but it's a friendship obviously that gets broken,
Mm.
but in the back you have the Irish Civil War, which is sort of the backdrop for the whole thing. It's a very interesting way to tell a story about something. I mean, it's a story about the Irish Civil War,
Mm.
while not really including it at all. They
yeah,
are
it's
spec.
sort of told through the lens of a dissolving friendship.
Mhm.
Mm.
It's a really, really creative choice, narrative wise.
Yeah, which is essentially, I mean, what it was, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
The Irish Civil
Uh,
War was tragically an extremely pointless conflict, if we're being honest with ourselves historically.
Well, yeah, but that's the entire point, is
Yeah,
that
exactly. Yeah.
in their minds, like in Colm's mind, he's like, well, I have to do this. It's very important. But it's really a dumb conflict. It's like, well, you're too dumb. I can't waste my time on you.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, he wastes his time like talking with plenty of other dumb people on the island. It's it's a film about sort of righteous indignation, I guess, like this idea that I have something more important to do, which is essentially what the Irish Civil War was about, which was like, we're not free enough, we're not independent,
Mm.
so we're gonna start fighting with each other. Um, and what's brilliant is you have like the animals are an incredible choice for creative storytelling, which is that they're the spectators. They are the people on the side who are not involved in the war or in this fight, but
They get dragged.
inevitably they get dragged in and you get a loss. And one of the things that's very interesting is you have a very different reaction. Like Colm's like cutting off his own fingers. It's like shock, but also you still have that comedic tone. But when Jenny, the donkey, dies,
Mm.
it becomes a very dark film.
That
And
Mm.
that, I think that's
very
deliberate.
that very nearly took me out of the film.
Mm.
And in the next scene, and I forget Colm's dog's name, but
Sammy.
when Patrick almost or is implied to maybe be going to
Mm.
kill Sammy,
Mhm.
I was like, this will take me all the way out. I will, you know, it will ruin the
I,
movie for me. And then, there's a almost moment of, sad sweetness on his part
mm.
where he's like, why would I ever hurt you?
Yeah.
And
Which is the thing, like it's an accident, right? And he does feel horrible about it, but it
Mm.
happens because they're so blind with this dumb hatred for each other, or
Mm.
not even hatred, but difference of
like
opinions.
like the bizarre escalation of things that they
Yeah.
feel they have to do. I was kind of contemplating about this. I've been curious what you guys think. Is this film, and I think it's a valid thing to critique, but is this film like kind of a critique on the image of like the isolated like not so like almost like the small town kind of like the isolated small town in the sense of like how it forces it, like argue like how it forces everyone to see each other, and when people have a bizarre falling out, it's like it moves from a bad thing to like this bizarrely devastating thing that can ruin
yeah,
someone's
I
life.
don't think
that,
it's
that's a very wise commentary, Declan. I think that this film, especially how you see their conflict impact someone like Siobhan.
Mm,
It's, you know, even though it's between the two of them, and again, we talked about the backdrop of the Irish Civil War, but even though this conflict, the end of their friendship is just between the two of them, it does have that, effect where everyone knows everyone's business because
mm,
you're in this small community. So
mm,
I think, yeah, it's absolutely a reflection of that.
mm, mm,
yeah, just to follow up, I don't think it's necessarily a critique of like small town nature. Like obviously that is the nature of small towns. I think he used small towns because of that, to
mm.
show that like especially the lady who I don't even know what shop that was, but they got the mail and they got,
O'Riordan's.
yeah. Um, but that lady who's always like, "Do you have any news?"
Mm.
And she seems
The
so
town
pleased
gossip.
when well, it's very particular though. It's not just town gossip. She um is very pleased when the policeman comes in and says like one person drowned and then another person, I forget what happened, like stabbed someone 6 times or whatever.
Stabbed his wife 6 times.
He stabbed his wife 6 times.
I just came from the theater, so this is why I
Yeah,
can remember details really well.
he's very pleased with that. Whereas when it's something having to do with him beating his son, it's terrible. because it's too close to home. I think it shows that they feed on other people's demons and their troubles. Um, Essentially, just how they use like the war across the water as just gossip, essentially. They don't
Mm.
care. He talks about executions, like, oh yeah, you want to go see who gets executed? They have no regard for them as people anymore.
Mm.
They're too far disconnected from their own society.
Mm.
I think the small town works really well because it's easy to show like a sort of hive mind of ideology,
Mm.
case
Mm.
of like entertainment,
Yeah.
which is other people suffering.
And in a way, like that sort of ideology can seep into your mind, so it sort of becomes that men will literally chop off all five of their fingers before going to therapy, in a
Or
way,
just
or even just talking about their problems, like
yeah,
towards,
or
They talk
talking
about their
through it.
problems.
yeah,
Colm makes his feelings known very clearly throughout
true,
the film.
true,
It's a
true.
matter of Patrick not accepting it.
Hmm. Though admittedly, upping the ante to like literal self-mutilation is arguably an unreasonable thing to do.
I think the
Right,
other
but
thing
I
is,
think
oh yeah, continue.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I think that kind of goes with what we were saying of like this is an all-consuming thing in a small town. I don't know if you guys saw Martin McDonagh's last film before this, Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, but
Oh,
it
he did
had
that.
kind of an opposite effect. That
Tremendous
film was
film.
about a yeah, a tremendous film, but that film had kind of the opposite effect of also being in a small town but feeling incredibly isolating.
Mm.
That film felt kind of empty in terms of um, the amount of characters that we follow, right? This one, in a different way, was packed. You knew everybody, you knew everything that was going on. It was like this very overwhelming sense of I know everything that's going on in this person's life, and it's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to dominate every facet of my viewing experience. I just thought that was really interesting, right? Because we talked about how the Civil War is kind of like the backdrop for the film, and obviously there's this kind of pointless argument between Podrick and Calm, and how it affects everybody despite them being distant from the major historical event that is
Mm.
occurring, I don't know,
Right
five
on their
miles,
doorstep,
10 miles
arguably.
from where they're living. Yeah. And yet that is what the focus of this film is, that it's their own civil war on their little island.
Yeah,
Mm. Mm. I did not know that Martin McDonagh also did Three Billboards. I wish I had seen Three Billboards before. Yeah, I wish I had seen that. But it'll be cool to compare.
he hasn't made that many films, so yeah, you should
Mm.
Yeah,
watch
Three
them.
Billboards. I mean, just we could go on. We could do an entire episode on Three Billboards.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
Prince Norman
we'll
and
try to focus
Woody
on his
Harrelson and Sam Rockwell.
this project.
Mm.
But the other thing that I wanted to say is like while you have that going on, this film also does serve as sort of an existential crisis for both of them and like an existential ideology,
Mm.
which is
He does reference
Colin,
despair that he
Colin
has.
feels the creeping death of, you know, 12 years down the line or whatever.
Mm.
Um, but he feels the need to, you know, start doing things that are important rather than hanging with his friends. Sort of questions what is important. To Podrick, it's just being nice. To Colin, he feels like this need to leave something behind. And that also does sort of fit into the ideologies of like this Irish Civil War.
Mm.
It's like, are we just going to be content or are we going to keep fighting?
Mm-hmm.
And the strife that caused. But
And arguably, wait, can I also just say, like, historically, arguably, like the path Ireland went down was like the path they should have just done from the beginning and not fought the Civil War over, which was take the peace they had and then slowly over time become more and more independent through diplomacy and negotiation.
Well,
Where,
yeah, but that does lead into the point, which is like creeping death.
mm-hmm,
If they're not going to live to see it, people want to have their legacy cemented, and that fits into the legacy of Ireland just as much.
mm-hmm,
A bunch of those ideologies, the reason behind them is because they want to leave their legacy on their country. And so they're willing to forgo niceness, and pleasantries, and just being a normal, good person, out of righteousness, which is sort of what Column ends up doing.
mm.
It's like you can understand it, but also it doesn't make any feckin' sense. In that he does waste his time all the time. He goes to the pub and stuff. It's not like Podrick is such a drag on his life, but he just has chosen because he views him as like too dull to hang out with, I guess, that he would surround himself
Almost
with people who would diddle their kids and beat their kids and
fiddle.
a penchant for sharing terrible news with glee.
Mm.
And then, of course, we haven't even talked about Dominic, which is the other poor soul to get ignored in all this.
Can I just real quick that this was not lost on me, and maybe it was lost on you guys. We're seeing Matt Reeves, Joker, and Penguin hanging out together in Ireland.
Oh yeah.
Barry Keoghan and Colin Farrell.
Mm-hmm.
Not lost on me. The first time I saw the two of them together, I was like, huh. Oh,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I kind of forgot he was the Joker at the end.
We were like, "Where's Paul Dano right now?"
Oh
Paul Dano's
no!
stuck in the Fablemans.
Yeah, yeah, baby. No, yeah. We'll talk about the Fablemans when it comes
No,
out.
we won't.
Undoubtedly.
No, we will not.
George is like so mad because he sees Spielberg and Tony
Not,
Kushner
it's
make.
not even about Spielberg and Tony
All right,
Kushner.
all right,
About
all right.
Michelle Williams.
We still got some things.
Is it actually? Okay. Yes, yeah. Sorry. Tomfoolery getting in the way of discussion. My apologies.
So what did you guys think of the general tone? Because it is a sort of hit or miss style, I feel like, for some people.
Tonal shifts were a big part of it because it's a depressing story, right?
Mhm.
Two friends are not friends anymore. That is sad.
Mhm.
And that sort of melancholy is there throughout. And I think I mentioned this earlier. But again, you've got one of the first scenes when everyone's asking Podrick, are you rowing? And I didn't think we were rowing. And that's very funny. The repetition makes it really funny.
Mhm.
And there are other lighthearted moments throughout the film. So it does have this comedic element to it.
It's an interesting descent where it starts very, very lighthearted and then
Mhm.
it's darker and darker as the movie goes on.
The humor
I mean,
is
just to finish my thought, the tonal shifts are not blatant because it's so progressive through the film. You're
Mhm.
seeing a gradual shift from lighthearted comedy through some, like Ben, you said, very dark comedy into, intense, almost, dare I say, thriller drama, with the burning of the house and sort of how dark Podrick has become by the climax of this film. So I think the tonal shifts, you talk about the tone throughout, there are different tones. The film doesn't have one single tone, but there are hints of similarities from moment to moment that give it that sort of connection. And so I think all told, it's it's pretty consistent throughout in how it wants to deliver the vibes.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
one thing that you
Like
said,
a
it gets more depressing. It the one thing that I found very interesting is that, like, even though it gets more depressing, it still keeps that comedic tone almost
Mhm.
throughout the entire film. Um, and it's almost reminiscent of like them sort of gossiping again over the Civil War, which is it starts very. I don't mean to say that the Civil War started very lighthearted, but it's gossip, and then all of a sudden he cuts a finger off, and then more fingers. But the film itself still keeps a comedic tone, so it's interesting to think about like what he intended for the audiences. So you have that scene where he's cut off all his fingers, he's punched the policeman, and the donkey's died, and he goes to the father, and he's like, "Yeah, I gotta forgive or uh, forgive me, Father, for I've sinned."
He
Um,
doesn't say it that time.
no,
yeah.
yeah, he just said like, oh, you know, I
Well, he wanted to repent for killing the donkey.
yeah,
He said
Accidentally.
yeah.
he said
It
it's
was
an
an
accident,
accident, but I feel
but I
bad.
feel really bad about it. I had that
That's
the
funny.
priest.
It's
Yeah.
dark, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah, but the priest is like looking over him and was like, self-mutilation's a sin. He's like, oh,
Also, I also loved his line. It's like, do you think God gives a fuck about a miniature donkey? And then he
yeah,
responds with, I fear he doesn't.
yeah, that is the thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That that line is very important, I think, is
Mhm.
a donkey to me represents the people on the sidelines getting killed. Um, this sort of righteous war that they're fighting in Ireland. They're very Catholic, obviously. They make allusions to the Protestants over in England.
Hmm.
How much easier it was to fight them when
Mhm.
you knew who everyone
We're all
was.
on the same side.
Yeah, we're all on the same side. Um, but these people who are fighting their righteous wars, to them, God does not care about a donkey or someone on the side of the road or whatnot. But it's still a comedy, even in those moments. It's a blend that I think is like masterfully done. And
yeah.
it's very tough to get that off while still getting both sides of it. And it's very poignant.
Mhm.
I was
Um,
surprised to see because when I'm logging movies, I do it. I have a spreadsheet on my laptop, and I also do it on Letterbox. But I go by genre as one of my sorting mechanisms, I guess. And Wikipedia, which I use to, you know, just get the details on the movies. Should probably switch over full time to Letterbox, but who's got the time? Anyway, Wikipedia identifies this just as a black comedy.
Hmm.
Doesn't mention drama at all.
but
Interesting.
it's a Martin McDonagh black comedy. And then it's really
You're
not
right
a
in that Three Billboards is probably listed as the same. I haven't checked their page in a while, but
yeah. In Bruges is a very similar feel. I feel like Billboards is a bit different for him. But this to me keeps all the same elements.
Mhm.
Um, that even though there are more dramatic parts, it's all through a very depressing comedic lens.
Mhm.
Um,
I will say that the humor style is like very specific and like very dry. And so it's
oh
like
yeah.
if if you hate dry humor, like don't see the movie, honestly. Like you would genuinely hate it.
but I think this movie has something for everyone.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I
we
wouldn't
talk
say
about
that.
the different tones that are sort of meshed together here, and as I said in my Letterbox review, the concept of a friendship breaking up is pretty simple.
Mhm.
It's a story that's been told a lot, but the thing that makes it so unique here is that the way it's told and the way it's presented, where you really do see both sides of the story, you see why Podrick wants to keep the friendship alive. You see why
Mhm.
Colm wants to end it. that makes it accessible to everybody because everybody's been on one side or the other of a friendship that hasn't worked out. And I think that accessibility combined with a really strong script, fantastic production design and cinematography, and real chemistry among the cast, all of that combines to make this, first of all, my pick for best picture of the year so far. Not saying it's my favorite of the year. We'll get to that, at the end of next month. But this film it has so many things going for it, but they all work. And I think the bottom line is that this film, presents itself in such a way that any audience member, whether they're an unqualified film bro or a qualified film critic, will see something that they can, grab onto and find something to talk about in the same way that we're talking about it.
Well, I will agree with a caveat. No, I don't think it
I
applies to
hate your
everyone.
caveats.
Well, come on. This is a very specific style of movie that I don't think some people will enjoy. And that's
Well, you
fine.
know what? Our friendship's over.
I'm gonna keep bothering you until you start saying
I won't lie. I was expecting at least one friendship to end here, but I wasn't expecting it to be recorded on camera.
I just mean like it's a slow movie. So I went in there. I told you guys it was empty. I think two people ended up walking in. One guy watched half the movie with his sunglasses on and then left.
I have one other person in my showing. I was in the back row. I had someone in like the third row.
So clearly it does not have something for everyone. I think for some people this
I
is
saw it at
a
1:15 in the afternoon on a Wednesday.
no, that's not what I'm. The guy walked out, so clearly he wasn't enjoying it. But I just mean like it's a very depressing film. I don't think that some people will be willing to sit through this because it's not. It's a film. If you can't get the comedic elements out of it, I feel like it's way too depressing.
I'm gonna respond. I'm gonna play some devil's advocate to what you just said. The guy who walked out of your showing,
Mhm.
someone's gonna ask him about the movie, or someone's gonna ask him what he did today. He's gonna say, "Oh, I went to this movie, but I walked out of it halfway through." Oh, why'd you walk out of it? Now you're talking about the movie.
I thought you were gonna go with he had something better to do.
Ah,
Yeah.
heck
We
off.
don't. Okay, you don't have anything better to do. I was thinking about reading.
That's good. That was a good reference to go Captain
Declan,
America.
you're Irish. Let's hear your Irish accent.
Oh, you want to hear my Irish accent? My like really terrible cartoonish Irish accent? I can do one. It's not good, but it's like
That's fucking terrible.
yeah, I know it's fucking terrible. I know you gotta like be sort of keep the sing-songy and like kind of it's
Sorry, I
it's
asked.
You sound like a leprechaun.
exactly.
Coming for my Lucky Charms.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
color
what I
of my
sound
purple
like when I
gold.
do an Irish accent. But yeah.
I was surprised that there were no leprechauns in this movie. I'm 100% joking.
You guys want to talk? So I think the last two things I really want to talk about is Dominic.
Oh yeah.
He is the lone man out, which is that he's trying to be a good friend, but no one's really trying to be a good friend to him. Podrick just sort of hangs out with him because Colin abandoned him.
Yeah.
Like, well, I need someone to drink with.
He has like
and then he ends up dying after basically Podrick tells him how terrible he was and that like he sent
yeah. Also Siobhan turned him
go
down.
back.
His
We
death
should
in the lake is so unnecessary. It adds nothing to the story.
what does it?
No, I
Because
think
none of the main characters know he dies.
what?
So that's arguably the point.
What do you mean?
his death is shown as like the second to last scene in the movie.
No, Podrick knows that he dies.
Does he?
Yeah, that's why he says like Dominic's gone now. So the animals are-
Oh, my mistake, my mistake.
no, he knows he dies.
But like, it doesn't
I
really play a role in the events as they play out. He just kind of dies.
it actually does. So he plays into the Banshees the whole
Mm.
time. You have the Banshees. You have Mrs. McCormick, who keeps saying like, death is coming. Pray it's not for you. But the Banshees are wailing, and then you have the whole scene of Colin talking about like, oh, maybe there were Banshees, but I don't think they wail anymore.
Hmm.
They probably just sit back and watch.
Mm.
And there's a strain of depression throughout this film,
Mm.
especially Dominic, who gets rejected. He finds his one friend who he thought he had is a terrible person in his eyes.
Yes, that's true. Oh my
His,
gosh, that
his
is.
love rejects him,
Mm.
even in the future. He kills himself. It it is part of the Banshees in that the Banshees don't wail anymore because no one will listen. They just sit back and watch.
Mm.
And in fact, Mrs. McCormick does say things and they don't listen.
Mm.
But it is a strain of depression, and also is that nobody listens to the wailing and the cries of the people with the Irish Civil War.
Mm.
He, like Jenny, is one of those people left out to dry. He's abandoned because people are just using him the entire time.
Even his
Or
father.
he doesn't fit in. His father beats him, but nobody cares for him really.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
almost like he's the one crying out and no one
Yeah.
hears
Yeah.
him.
And in fact, yeah, he is. I mean, he talks about plenty of things.
It's a great performance by Barry Keoghan. I mean, that
Yeah, and if you think about
that
it, the
character is
only thing that Podrick uses him for is his company, and even worse than that, is ammunition at his father, just to make him feel bad because he's not feeling good. It's this type of messed up cannibalism between Irish folk. So
Mm.
I think his death is completely, I don't want to say necessary, but it completely is
An
part
important
of the
component of
story,
the
and very
story.
important. Because if he doesn't die, you don't see how much he has been ignored. If he does live, he's just the village idiot, essentially. He stays that way. But when he dies, you realize how much he's been neglected.
Mm.
And they talk about it before when he brings the news that somebody walked into the lake and drowned themselves. Very much reminiscent and foreshadowing what's
Mm.
going to happen. His
yeah.
glee at sharing that news.
And
And
the
then
court.
finds him later on. And of course, he's very depressed. But
Well, that's what the hook at the end of the stick was for, is pulling someone out of the lake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Introduced with it and then dies with it. Oh,
so,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think it is very well done and very well foreshadowed.
Mm.
yeah.
So, yeah, if he doesn't die, I don't think, I think it works very well.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Speaking of characters that we haven't brought up yet, can we talk about Carrie Condon as Siobhan?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How have we not talked about her? I feel like she's
Well, she is the odd one out in this
yeah,
island.
she's the
She does
person
not
who gets
participate.
out. Like she has that like it's sort of I think probably necessary like showing that in a way that this conflict is truly pointless in that she was able to escape it, you know. They
But
didn't
she
have
does the
to.
very thing that Colin keeps saying, like, I want to do something important. He's writing music and stuff. But she actually leaves the island. And in fact, she tells him off at one point. It's like, you live, on an island, a small island off the coast of Ireland. Like, who else is going to be here except for dumb, dull people?
Mhm,
She actually does not fit in there
mhm.
because she does not want to just gossip. She does not care about, that news. She thinks that people should be left alone. And she goes and leaves because she doesn't belong there, and she
Yeah,
goes and does something actually meaningful with her vast intelligence. She
I
shows
thought there
what
would be some sort of hemming and hawing over whether she would take the job offer on the mainland.
Mm.
You know, I thought there would be at least, you know, a scene between Siobhan and Podrick talking
Oh.
about, oh, please don't go.
Yeah.
You know, I have to go, even though I, you know, have a responsibility to you, my brother. Like, this is my way. This is, as Declan, you said, this is my ticket out.
Mm.
So I think in the interest of consolidating that arc, I don't really feel like that was lost.
Yeah.
In
Plus
to
it
have
makes
her
sense
leave a letter.
after someone. Yeah, it makes sense after someone throws four fingers at your door. That
if you think about it, it's another like fast to relationship where you have the relationship that Colin, even though he lives on the same island, is just like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. But then you also have his sister who is contemplating leaving the island. The only thing that she has here is Podrick. Everyone else sucks. No one likes her. So he is the
She's got
only reason.
Dominic. She's not interested in Dominic in the way
Oh,
that she's
yeah.
interested in her.
But yeah, but she doesn't
He's
really.
there.
I mean, she's like, well, at the end, she's like, well, that's it's a nice boy. But most of the time through the movie, she's like, well, this guy is creepy.
yeah,
He
yeah.
keeps sneaking up and so yeah. But I think it's interesting in that she has this obligation to him, and Colin does not, even though he's still on the island. He just doesn't want to talk to him.
Mm.
Whereas Siobhan is the opposite, and she really is what Colin wants to be: smart, intelligent, and leaves the island to do something important rather than just posturing that I'm doing something important.
And that's shown in their interactions. We
Mhm.
see sort of that dynamic, that complex between the two of them, where it's not stated explicitly, but the subtext of all of their interactions shows exactly what you were just talking about, Ben.
Well, I think one of the best scenes for that is when she goes in the pub after Podrick, yells at Colm. And Colm's, talking about like Mozart, like in the 17th century you had Mozart, who's gonna remember me? And he feels the need to, say that and mention Mozart. And then Siobhan comes and says, it's the 18th century, actually. Siobhan never is outward with her knowledge, but she knows more.
Mm.
So it's this sort of like,
It's subtle.
again, it's subtle, but it shows that he really isn't that much smarter than Podrick or anyone else on this island.
Mm.
She's way smarter, and she talks to everyone. It's just sort of this bizarre ideology,
Mm.
you know. And I think that
But I mean, she gives an absolutely outstanding performance. I for one
yeah,
really only know her as the voice of Friday in the MCU. I hadn't really seen her act before. But I mean, she, for a film with such a great, leading four actors, she is as deserving of her place in this film as, Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, and Barry Keoghan.
Mm.
She matches all of them moment for moment as they match her moment for moment. So I think what we get out of, the relationships between these characters, it right off the bat gives you a world that feels very lived in and very authentic. And that makes it just come alive, at least for me as an audience member. I don't know about you guys.
No, it really is a very authentic storytelling, even though it's like ridiculous nature. You still feel the weight of everything. So even though maybe the actuality and the reality of someone doing that is not like realistic, but the feelings, and the relationships and the whole background, especially again with the Irish Civil War, like it feels real. That's because a lot of these feelings are real, even if the relationship is extreme.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, all in all, I'd have to agree with you, George. That's my pick for best film of the year. It's beating that Nope. I really like Nope, but
Oh
this is
wow.
a very beautiful film.
All
That's
right,
high
well,
praise.
save your favorites for the end of the year, like I am.
Keep an eye out for that video coming soon.
Yeah, we're looking forward to end of year favorites again.
Yeah.
Benji, you're hosting. Take us home.
Uh, Everyone should probably go see this film if you like dark comedies.
Mm.
I disagree with George in that it's got something for everyone. For most people who are willing to engage with the film, I think you can definitely get something out of this.
Yeah, I liked it more than I thought I would.
Yeah, but it's a film, it's very rare that you see a film like this that feels very unique. You can tell who the filmmaker is like immediately. This is one of those films. It's
Mhm.
art. So I can't give much higher praise than that. It is art to me.
Mm. It's in theaters now.
It is in theaters now. And go watch it in Bruges if you like it. Probably like that too. And Three Billboards. They're all
Just all of McDonough's film.
yeah, just this entire filmography. Yeah. And next week, what are we doing next week?
How is it that the 2 times that we've all been on that you've hosted, we've had an MCU movie the next week, and you
Oh yeah, Wakanda Forever.
MCU movie the
Oh
next
my God.
Because I always see the trailer and I'm like, are we doing that one next week? Is it that soon? Because I saw when it was coming out and I was like, geez, wow.
Yeah,
Snuck
I know
up.
what you mean. I know what you mean.
All right, so we're doing Wakanda Forever next week. Move from one island to Wakanda.
Yeah. Dude, not an island, but
No,
dude,
I'm not. But I'm
from
forgetting
one
big
country
island.
that's not America to another country that's not America.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Okay.
Till then.
See ya.
Night.
Good night.